Hi, and welcome to Alicia Woodford's Resource Vibe. This is your directory for master spiritual healing, guidance, and business resources. Today's show is going to be a fun one. I'm talking with, and most likely laughing with, my favorite psychic medium, super empath, funny as hell, double Pisces, Alex Moody. She's the Moody medium. I've experienced a lot of psychic mediums before Alex. And then when I had my first reading with Alex, I was like, oh, this is something different. It's a lot more. So Alex is not just some fortune teller, gypsy lady with the crystal ball. And she doesn't just talk with dead people. And so it's very different with Alex. She closes her eyes, and usually with me, she just starts laughing, and she's just like getting like a flood of information from so many people, places, things. So that's what I mean. It's very different having a reading with Alex. She is getting information from people and pets, both dead and alive, our higher self, guides, and she sees things that we're not aware of that are impacting us. Exactly 3 years ago this week, a very sweet client of mine gave me a birthday present, and it was a reading with Alex Moody. And she's like, I just know you are going to love her. Like, her readings are just something else. And she was right. I did love Alex. I loved the reading. I got so much from it. And it was actually in perfect timing that I was given this gift to connect with Alex, because little did I know, 3 months later, I separated from my husband of 10 years. And I've had almost a dozen readings with Alex over the last 3 years because I was going through the biggest transition of my entire life, leaving a 10-year marriage, leaving the life that we created together, the dream life that I always wanted in Costa Rica. I also left that, and I split up our two dogs, and I was taking my baby puppy with me. And so there was a lot I needed to check in around in terms of the places I was going to, how my dog was feeling, what was happening in these different places, because I was in a transition for years. So I moved across the country in Costa Rica. I couldn't find a place. A lot of things, weren't lining up or just weren't happening. And there was things I just wanted to check in with. So that's the other thing. A lot of times people think they predict the future, which they can. But that's why a lot of people go, right? It's like, tell me when this is going to happen, or, when I'm going to meet my soulmate. I didn't ask that, but she told me anyway. um, and so, yeah, those are typically the two reasons why people go, or the most common is talking with dead people and fortune tellers, right? But I have not used psychic mediums like that. So I have booked readings with Alex over the last 3 years to check in around what's happening now for me that I'm not aware of, and how my dog is feeling, or how all of my dogs are, dead and alive. So Alex has helped me tremendously during these last 3 years with the huge transition of leaving everything behind and starting over. And then also meeting a French man who I fell in love with, and then eventually moved to France. And so, again, another huge transition that Alex helped me through as well. And I have referred all of my friends and clients to her as well. And I'm just so happy and excited to speak with her and share her with all of you listeners. So, welcome, Alex, to the Resource Vibe.
Hi. What a great intro. There, I'm laughing already.
I know. We're just gonna giggle the whole time.
Yeah, yes. I taught yoga Golly, for years and years and years. I think I've even told you this story, and someone came up to me once after a yoga class and he was like, "You're such a great instructor, but that laugh, you got to get rid of the laugh." And I was like, I mean, I think I just laughed. I was like, it's not going anywhere. I don't know. I didn't have an answer for it.
I love your laugh, and actually, when you laugh, like, I get giggly, like, my whole body starts giggling, like, it's like this vibrating energy.
Yes, yes, yeah. It's definitely, I got that Leo moon. It's a little bit, that like playful energy is,
Yes.
yes, yes. Yeah,
That's
I
a
can't believe that wrap up either. 3 years?
right?
That's I don't know. I don't ever like I'm sure we'll talk about this like in my human design. I run everything my business very feminine, so I was just looking because I have 0 Google reviews, which is like, I don't do a newsletter. All the things people have been like, do these things. I don't do any of that. So to get like measurable like that was really sweet. I was like, oh, that's so lovely. It was making me think of like all the clients I've ever worked with in my brain and getting these like visuals of what a privilege it is to be in the role I'm in. I get like these snapshots of people's lives and I get to be just a little part of it and then they go on their way. It's really cool.
Yeah. Well, I'm so grateful for you in my life at the perfect timing, as I said.
Yeah.
Just wow, everything that I went through that you were able to help me with.
Yes.
So I wanna know about your gifts because they are unique. How all of the information you have access to. Did you always have access to all of that? And when did it start? And I know you grew up in a haunted house.
I did. Although you can ask the rest of my family, they aren't as into it. But it was built in 1918, the DC area in Northern Virginia, which is a area that has activity. I joke around. I have an older brother, older sister, and I joke around that everyone has gifts, right? But I feel like it was like, oh shit, we forgot some of the gifts, and they just like power loaded them onto me or something. I don't know. Like it's in my chart as well. I'm a big astrology nerd, not a professional astrology nerd. So I have a lot of placements for that. But when I was born in DC and at age 4, we moved to this house. So one of the main things that helped me wake up to all of that, because I'm such a double Pisces, I assumed everyone saw the things I saw. I would run into my parents' bedroom, sleep on their floor a lot, things like that, nightmares, things. I
Eh,
also would go to the library because I'm, you know, 43. So, with a little card catalog, and I would like look at books about ghosts. But the books about ghosts were like these photographs. They were these like white sheets or white figures, not sheets like we stereotypically think, but like white light, something like that, which of course spirits can look like that. But I was seeing faces and hearing like it's weird to describe it. So I mainly feel and see things, right? Closing my eyes really helps me concentrate. That's the best way to put it, too. And then I'm not paying attention to nonverbals. And so when I was younger, I would close my eyes to try to go to sleep and I would see more stuff.
oh,
Um,
jeez.
and
So,
yeah,
since
and
you were born, or when did
yeah,
it start?
all the time. It really ramped up when we moved to, the Leesburg house. It's Leesburg, Virginia. It really ramped up then. My dad actually still lives there too. Hilariously enough, really wants my husband and Tom and I to move up there, and I'm like, it's not gonna happen. We're very content in Western North Carolina, but you know, it's it I would there were certain entities that would visit me, at night, and that's kind of a whole other conversation, and then I would see what we call random spirits that would come through, and it's a lot of the consciousness of spirits, so, this will happen in readings a lot where we're feeling it's something that's happening to our neighbor, or we live near a hospital, or we live near, a graveyard, something like this, or something happened on the land. When people ask me about haunted houses, I'm always like, go to the land. Right. And that's what I would do when I'm home. I protect myself. It doesn't seem to affect the rest of my family. When I've tried to clear my family home, it doesn't really take. It's really hard to explain. It's to me a house with a lot of activity. And my friends like wouldn't sleep over growing up. They're like, we're not sleeping over there.
Can you shut it off ever?
Yeah, like, when I go back there now, it's a lot easier. I have, and this is why I'm pretty big on like tools, resources, things like that, because it's a lot better. when I go back. And so I'm glad I asked if I could cuss because I do say stuff like, I'm coming up there, fuck off, like for a while, because I've seen dark stuff there. I don't love words like dark. I could say shadow more so, something like that. But things that definitely tried to mess with me a lot as a kid, which is why I would run into my parents' room
Mm.
or my sister. Sometimes I would go be like, "Hey, Rachel."
Did they believe you?
Yeah, I mean, I no, they still kinda don't.
Oh,
They're
no.
lovely, they're lovely. My sister's gotten readings, my brother-in-law's gotten readings from me, my so is my sister-in-law. So, they're supportive, it's not that like that, it's more so all of them are like, "We've never experienced anything," So, and it is tough because it would be a lot of the, "It's all in your imagination, you just have a vivid imagination," and this was, like, '80s, '90s, so there wasn't Google. There wasn't a lot of information to say, "Hey, what's going on with my kiddo here?" Therapy wasn't as popular, and to be real, my parents weren't big fans of therapy. And so
So
I
you could
definitely
have
see
been
therapist as
psychotic.
evil. I'll say that
You could
again.
have been schizophrenic, and they wouldn't have gotten you.
Exactly, and I would and part of me really appreciates that now. I mean, I'm very type B, my family, I grew up in a much more type A household, so I can kinda channel that. It helps me run my business, it helps me be organized, so I'm grateful to grow up in a more of a environment like that. For a long time, I really resented my parents for not believing in me, and, I do a body work as well, so and taught yoga, so for many years they were like, "Oh, well, you do this body work and yoga." And I'm like, "And I'm a medium." Like, I think my parents' friends had like sent them my website. Like, is this what Alex is making a living? And it is, which is so amazing and lovely. And now I know like spirit allies, things like that. I can stay places like I'll definitely have some rough nights at places, Airbnbs, things like that. But for the most part, I can go places now and I'm like, well, hi. I mean, my office has someone that 2 characters, I'll call them, but they're not allowed in my room when I'm there?
Do they listen to you when you say go away?
Yeah, so it was interesting, I was moving in now I moved into an office space where the woman who taught me tarot lived or was, like and I had learned tarot in that room, so it's kind of interesting, and so I was like, "Why didn't she warn me?" There's and so Tom, my husband and I, he's, like, helping me move stuff in, and so one trick that, spirits will do to kind of get you to throw you off balance is I call it the photograph trick. It's weird. It's like a flash comes to your face and you feel dizzy because they're kind of trying to get you off your proprioception. And it can even be like when you walk through a spirit or something and you get chills, something like that. And so when I'm walking around, I'll basically have what I call an invisibility cloak. I don't want spirits to know I can see them. But once they do something like that to them, I go, "Hi, I'm a medium." And
Mm.
Tom's used to he's just talking to things. And she was like, "I like that corner of your office," basically, and shows me. And I'm like, "No, yeah, you can't be in my office at all." And so then I go into my office to set things up and putting up like a salt lamp. And I take the light bulb to put in the salt lamp and it pops in my hand. Like she kind of doubles down. And I was like, okay, no. So every like, I mean, I've been there for 5 years now, 6. And every once in a while she peeks in and says hello and is kind of like, hey. And if I'm leaving, the last one leaving the office and turning on the space, it's a big old house. I'll see her coming in and I'm like, okay, it's yours now. Bye. Because it's not the type of create a portal, let her release. It's like a part of her consciousness is there as a part of that house. So I do see things differently in that way. I typically see it as consciousness, similar to when in readings we're bringing their energy down so that they're in their energy bodies and we're going up to our energy bodies, like the meeting space. And then that's how I can know with their name, right? And what you call them, all of that. Like I can get information. If we went to their soul space or their Christ consciousness space, God space, universe space. Again, I'm a big fan of whatever language you want to use for sure. Then there wouldn't be anything. We would just be at peace. It would be peace, love, all of that. So I do see lots and lots of spirits as crossed over. I'm
Mm.
not typically like this spirit's stuck or something like that. It's like a part of their consciousness, almost like when you come into a room after two people have been arguing, you're like, ooh, there's some tension in here. And our being can get stuck in that consciousness. So that's what I do a lot of is I joke around that humans haunt the world way more than past loved ones and crossed over people because, we leave our consciousness in a lot of places, and it's like kind of clearing that up and cleaning that out. And, there's such easy ways to do that too. I'm a
Mm.
big fan of simple and easy.
Like what?
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely do, I run a spiral protection, so I do clearing, I do a lot of organizing in my auric field. I like the term auric field. Could light some Palo Santo, something like that. Can also light a candle and be like, "Thank you, goodbye." Open a window, anything that quote clears the air. This is what's amazing about us humans is we have all these sayings that connect to the tarot, that connect to esoteric things. We don't necessarily know that that's what they're connected to, but it's similar to clearing the air when you have an argument with a loved one. Eventually, you're going to want to be like, hey, let's repair this, right? Most likely. And so that's kind of the part where trauma and, nervous system work and all of that comes in, because as long as we're in our kind of like baseline, we're able to then engage in those ways as well, which is great. And that's really what I didn't offer my gifts for a long time because my nervous system was so dysregulated. And you can ask friends in my 20s, I call it our second teens anyway. I just didn't know how to manage things,
It
you
is
know?
our second teens for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, totally. Our second teens, we're kinda supposed to make mistakes, I feel like. I'm, like, happy that I had not so great relationship I wasn't great in relationships. That's when I know we have a shared love for dogs. When I got Tomato, my doggo who just passed in August, like, I got her in my late 20s, near my Saturn return, and I was winging it a lot. And I still wing it, but very organized. I know we both don't have any planets and Earth in our chart, so
No, yeah, that's right.
yeah, so, I wing it with organization. I've learned that, and that's how my guides work too. It's very Neptunian of me as a double Pisces.
So, what was it like when you were in your teens and second teens with all these gifts, with a dysregulated nervous system? And what did you do to regulate your nervous system to come into your gifts
Yes.
as it is now?
Such a great question. I warned you I'm a generator, so I'm like, "Yes."
Both are. We're very
Okay. Like, I was like, try not to make, but it is, and I mean, it manifested for sure as migraines, which I still sometimes work with a little bit. I have to be aware of those because if you know Ayurveda, like it's very Vata, right? We're going up. And so, and then I grounding wise, my system actually likes to feel more centered than grounded. And of course, those are two different things, but centering myself grounds myself is a better way of putting that. And so I would get migraines. And so, one does. I was a creative writing major undergrad, and then I did AmeriCorps, and then I went to grad school, and they got way worse. And so I got a really, really clear view of like what it is when you're not on your path. And so what I
mm,
did is I did a tarot card moment. I blew up my life. I moved across the country, and I like started doing a bunch of yoga, and I just opened myself up a ton because I was like, oh, I got to be open. I got to be open. I grew up in a closed house. I got to close my gifts down. And so what happened is I was a mess because I didn't know what emotion was my emotion. I would accidentally give people messages I know all the time that they'd be like, "Hey, stop bringing up this past loved one." Or they'd be like my dead relative. And I'm like, "I don't know why. I just keep talking about them." And it's because they were talking to me. But I didn't have the structure. That's why I'm
mm.
big. I have no planets in Virgo, but it's the Pisces polarity. I'm big on organizing because organization is how we can filter the information. And that's how, like you said at the beginning of readings, it's like a zip file. I get so much information and then I have to kind of like spread it out over time. And then I just start kind of going in and talking. And then of course, if you have questions or specific past loved ones you want to go to, we go there. But as you know, I can easily talk a whole reading. I do 90-minute readings and I have sometimes talked the whole time if the client's like, just talk, you
Wow.
know? And so it's cool because, organizing that information helped a lot with my health. And so then when I moved to Asheville, North Carolina in 2008, and I went to school in Boone, North Carolina, near Asheville. So when I did yoga teacher training, I kept opening myself up and I joke around like Asheville's pretty cuddle puddly.
Yeah, definitely.
It's very yeah, I mean, Atlanta's nearby, and it's very can be very hippie, but it can also be pretty hillbilly, I'm very
Mhm.
Celtic. I'm Highland Celt from both my dad and mom's side, so, generations back, but Celtic energy is something that I've started to integrate a little bit more. That's helped me a lot. I mean, I have a tattoo of a crow I got on my shoulder before I knew I was Celtic. And then I say to my guides, I'm like, "Why didn't you tell me I was Celtic?" They're like, You didn't ask." Like, they just sass, If there's not humor between guides, and I do have some really serious clients, and that's their path, and seriousness is what they're meant to do. So,
And did they have serious
my
guys?
guides are cheeky with me.
Yeah.
They are very funny. Yeah.
Isn't it typical that the, person's guides matches their personality?
Yes. Well, it's like a part of us. They kinda
Mhm.
come through us and work with us in that way. My favorite is when I ask them a question about myself, and then I get this pause, and they go, "Ask a different question." Like, it's never wrong or right or anything like that. Or we've talked about this, like, I'll be driving somewhere or something, I don't listen to them, and I hit traffic, and they're like, It's just gonna take a longer route." And then they use that as an example over other things where I don't listen to them, and I'm like, "Oh, shoot, should I have engaged with that conversation more?" And they're like, just gonna take a longer route, And it's that everything's in its right place, it's at its right time is what's beautiful about that. There's no mistakes, and in a way, no accidents, which is another interesting phenomenon in psychic work where, like things happen in our worlds that we can't control or anything like that, as well. But we can navigate it with our gifts and with our awareness and so getting a lot of migraines and I started teaching yoga. Again, it was just too much opening up. And then my professional background is actually a career counselor. So that was really cool. I use that a lot. I have training in, listening and therapy and all of that. But my master's is in education. So, that helped. It's like all a part of the path. You can just tell when you're on a path and it's not it, but you're still gathering the information that you need.
Yeah.
And then what to let go of as you're walking, because there was a lot of guilt and shame and, "Is this real?" There's dysregulation in this field, right? Like, there's you wanna be ethical, of course, you want your clients to get a lot out of their readings.
How long have you been doing it?
Yeah, so I have been professionally working for about 10 years, and before that with yoga, and that includes Ortho-Bionomy, which is the terribly named body work I do. Um
Can you rename it? What would you call
I
it?
know. Well, I've thought about being like nervous system healing work or something like that. I actually had that on my website for a little while too. I think I still do. Mm,
Yeah, you could put in
Because
parentheses,
yes, yes.
ortho-bionomy, yeah.
Yeah, because, and the word breaks down to the correct application of life. But ortho is connected. We work with the bones, but we work with the muscles, everything like that. Ortho is connected to like self-correcting. So oftentimes, like orthopedist is correcting the bones, right? Like getting the structure back in.
Mm.
And so it's cool because our inherent ability to self-correct, which is an amazing thought, idea. It's awesome.
And so you offer that in person
I
and
do, and
remotely?
remote, yeah. Because, we can work with the system, in all of its layers, right? Our psychic layer, our energy layer. And then I just did a training on the fascia in Grand Junction, Colorado that was really, really cool on impact injuries. So that was really, really cool because fascias are connective tissue, but it's also like our whole connection
Mm.
to who we are in the world, all of that as well, which is really important as an intuitive that we know this, right? We know our kind of not our place, but our role, our soul in a role, is if you will, like right where because if I know my role. Then I can kind of meet people on that path. It's like that's what I think of it. We're coming together to the table in a reading.
So, a psychic reading, what is that like, and why do people book? Like, what are the things that they're wanting to get from it, and what comes through for them? Just kind of an overview of that, and then the difference between that and the nervous system healing session, which I did, which was incredible.
So I have the 30-minute, 60-minute, 75, and 90. And now I just did add group rates because I was doing a lot of group readings with my regular rates and just to be fair, like for my energy and also for sometimes it'd be 4 people. and I'm over the phone and we definitely go over the hour.
Well, why would someone book a group reading?
Yeah. Oh, perfect. So I just did a group reading for three sisters. So they all connect to a past loved one typically, and I'll go from each to the other. My favorite part about group readings is sometimes, so I did this reading once. It was so great where it was just for the mom, but the daughter had done a reading for me and she was in the background with permission from her mom to be there. And I do the download, as you know. So I close my eyes and I download to make sure I'm connecting with your energy. I describe your life, your intuitive gifts, sometimes past loved ones. Sometimes I answer questions you have, things like that. And again, I just see it all and I distinguish the energy and I ask questions from there. And I describe her and she pauses and she's like, I don't know. Is that really me? I don't know. And her daughter from the kitchen goes, yes. Like, crazy. Like, because, it's cool that's what I love about group readings is they kind of are like, well, wait, what about this? Because sometimes in a reading, it's a little overwhelming, the energy. But as you know, I check in a lot. Does that make sense? I want people to say yes and no in real time in their readings so we can pivot or get different information or more information for them as
Mhm.
well. So, um, yeah, it's, and so again, in readings, people ask me about partnership. We sometimes work with spirit babies, animal communication's a big one for sure. Past loved ones, connecting with them. Oftentimes people have questions about their passing. I get the energy around how people pass. I love how different mediums read differently, but I feel like this is because I'm trauma informed, see pain before passing. A lot of times people will be like, you pop out of your body. But we have all had a sickness, an illness, a disease. We've all had things happen in our world where there's pain. Pain is a part of life. It's also a part of death, right? So
Mhm.
oftentimes they'll show me I was in pain and then I'm no longer, or my favorite is when they're like, I was so old, I was so ready. They'll say stuff like that, like, get me out of here. They're at peace. It just depends. It depends on the spirit, depends on the client, of course, how the message comes through. And so typically then they can ask specific questions of their guides or of their past loved ones, career questions. I have a client that has me dial into the stock market, things like
Mm.
that. Presidential things. I have a client who has me dial into crypto and go into that and or new businesses that he's wanting to invest in. And he just gives me the name of the business. And these are typically not public. So, and I dial into what it is. And then I say, yes, this is going to be a slow burn. It's going to take a few years and then it's going to, something like that. Majority is, can we talk to my past loved ones? Can we get some messages from my higher self? And then I do a lot of my ortho-bionomy principles. As you know, I run a spiral of protection, make sure I'm in right relationship with the client, honor what arises. These are a lot of the ortho-bionomy principles. I'm also not running energy, but I do a lot of mirror neuroning. So I had a client recently who just has really lovely energy. She does angel reading work and she was like, your energy is so great. And I'm like, I'm just being you back to you, you know? And so I'm reflecting a lot back to them because oftentimes we just like assume these things about ourselves. We're like, yeah, I guess I brighten people's day. And it's like, right, but that has an impact on the world. And so it's like my job to point these things out so people feel just at least have some gratitude towards themselves for these
Mm.
gifts, right? Like those are gifts to me as well.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, you helped me and many people that I know that I've referred to you with seeing and describing who they are and what their gifts are and how like even okay, for me, just as an example, the first reading that you did, you said that my tool is my heart. And it was like my heart is what helps everything or changes things for people. I don't need any other things like the stuff, the metaphysical store stuff.
The frustrating part in my human is I don't go up to people and tell them their gifts in the physical, but sometimes I can see that like tennis is always my human example. I play a lot of tennis. And so I can see some gifts, but they're like, it's like faint because I'm not fully dialing in because I don't want to dial into people I'm not providing a service for, but I can feel like some gifts, but I can't say anything because they're not a client.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of like nudge their guides. Like if they want to book with someone, it doesn't have to be with me, but they can get that information. Like a lot of And it's totally fine, TV shows with mediums, they go up to people and tell them gifts. I would just never do that. It's not
Yeah,
really
that
my style.
irks me. I don't know
Yeah,
if you've
I
experienced
can't.
this, but people, like, private messaging on social
Oh,
media,
yeah.
I see this for you, the psychics that are,
Yeah.
like, it's like parasites.
Yeah, predatory,
Yeah,
really.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Or scamming or, I've heard some stories from clients. Every profession has its not so great people in it, and psychic mediumship is and psychics for sure are
And they
uh
may not even be
yeah,
psychics. I mean, I'm
right.
in this narcissistic abuse Facebook group, and oh my god, yeah, predator I mean, in a narcissistic abuse Facebook group, there's these predators that are psychics and, like, writing to everyone, private
Yes.
messaging.
I mean, I got off Facebook because I was like, I don't even want how long did it take me to follow you back on Instagram? 3 probably like 6 months ago because I'm like, I don't wanna but
Mm.
the way my gifts work, I'll see a post, and then when you book a reading, I'm like, "Oh, how was blah blah blah," because it's in there, it's organized in there, and that's so I can keep integrity of like I know these things, and so as when we do follow
Oh,
up
yeah.
readings, spirit builds. Every once in a while, spirit gives me amnesia, and I cannot remember anything this just happened. And she was like, "You said that last time, like the whole reading," and I was like, I just get what I call spirit amnesia because the channeling needs to come from the same kind of clear space, and then most of the time it builds on
Yeah.
previous readings, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's a part you don't have to do anything, that's just happens for you. Some other things that you helped me with in some readings, with my transition, you helped me a lot with what you saw for the house. Like, I was, like, I've had a really hard time finding housing and places to rent when I was on the other coast of Costa Rica, so you really helped me with that. There was one particular one, you're like, "You have to jump on it," and it was so true. Like, I was about to, like, let this message go, or it was easy to miss, and, it was the one that I found that you helped me with. So I don't really ask about future stuff, but during my reading with you, and it's in my book, and that's the other thing you helped me with, you saw the cover of my book that helped me design my book cover too. But in the book, I share about, separated from my ex-husband, and he said, "I know you don't wanna hear this, but a great love is coming." I was like, "Ah, I do not wanna hear this right now." And I really didn't. I was like, "I wanna be alone." And then, like, the next reading I had, you described him. I think it was important and maybe, like, the information needed to come to me because I may have, like, second guessed it too much if I didn't. It was helpful because it was like, I felt it through and through.
Yeah. Well, we're always kinda just, like, catching up to ourselves too, what's in the field, and that's what that we're all in relationship to it as well, right? Like, you 2 had already met, right? As above, so below, and that's what I'll say, like, "I see someone in your field, are you sure?" Like, I'll say to a client, "Are you sure? Are you dating someone?" They're like, "No," and then I get a text the next week sometimes like, "Well," and it's interesting how it all kind of comes in as we be aware and looking for it, right? That's some Jungian, like Carl Jung philosophy. Like, are we engaging and aware and connected with ourselves too? Which is a lot of what we're doing in readings as well, is connecting, like, because I'm going to go live my life, you're going to go live yours. We're connecting in that hour, so that you can have the tools then to connect with your intuition, because I do mainly work with and fellow intuitives. That's who
Yeah.
I work with. I mean, and again, I believe everyone's intuitive, but I definitely have some really amazingly intuitive clients, and we're working on sharpening those skills a bit.
When
Yeah.
you say we already met, what does that mean?
Yeah, so it's like, and sometimes this can connect into past lives, things like this, but it's like your energy field is connected, or sometimes it's even the astral body that's connected. Most of the time, I see more the energy body is connected. So there's already this similar actually to when we end a relationship. They're still in our field, and we've got to kind of do the work to not necessarily clear them out, but like it's like psychic debris. It's like, oh, okay. And we can translate this into sometimes projections or trauma or baggage or whatever wording we want to use that we take into a next relationship, right? That we've got to kind of work, and we say this like, I got to clear this out. And so, same thing of like, we can feel them. I can always feel like an ex partner leaving the field, right? And I worked with someone on this yesterday, and and then it's like we can choose to bring them back in to discuss one more thing, but for the most part, they've left the field. And so that's
Mhm.
helpful too, so that we can have clarity in our own system, about our future, or things like that too, as well.
Yeah. I like that as well because you do talk with people alive, and that's another unique thing that
Yes.
not all psychic mediums do is, so you're communicating with pets who are living and other people, and if there's interference with us with someone else, you can talk to them
Yes.
and help with that and
Yeah, and a client said, have me dial into their children before they're verbal, or a teenager who is having behavioral issues. And I can dial in and give messages because they possibly can't figure out their words. They're in too much of, I mean, I just imagine, I mean, this never would have happened, but if my parents had talked to a psychic medium about me when I was 13, 14, and given them messages to help understand me more, it would have changed my life. So, I take those parts very seriously
wow.
because I
Yeah.
love the impact. Many, many years ago, I did basically, it's like you figure out your core desired feelings, how you want your life to feel. And my number one, and it still is my number one, is profound. Like, I like it when profound things happen in our world because we can literally watch and feel and see the shifts and changes that happen. And sometimes it's that little nugget that a client is like, You told me 5 years ago." And I'm like, I, yeah, great. Like, I'm glad that nugget, especially when people record, they'll be like, whoa, I have like other messages underneath, like what the messages you're saying. I was like, that's double Pisces. Like, there's a lot of layers. I love it when,
Yes, yeah, definitely. I love what you shared because I didn't think of it. It's like a great way of counseling. I mean, and you have, your degree in it as well, so it makes sense. But talking, so your psychic gifts combined with your patients, so it's like you're counseling on that consciousness level with people and other people and the teenagers. And
but
so share what the nervous system healing
yes.
session is like.
Yeah, so an orthobionomy in person, it's on a bodywork table. It's actually closed. It's very similar to craniosacral work. It was developed in the 80s and 90s based he was a DO who also did jujitsu. So it's got this east-west kind of feel to it. We don't diagnose. So similarly in readings, I don't diagnose, but I'll be like, they ever been diagnosed as a narcissist? Like, me those vibes, something like that will come up for sure. And same thing with medical intuitive stuff I do. I'm not like, hey, you have cancer here. I'm like, the energy's pooling here, and then it's this and this and this. I just describe the energy in their body. So if someone wants a specific diagnosis, I definitely refer them, of course, to someone who does more medical intuitive like that. So, or people will actually have me dial into pets a lot for diagnosis.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm always like, go to your vet, get the testing to make sure they're congruent, that they line up. And so with orthobionomy, which I also practice on dogs, I have a regular weekly dog, a client who brings her dog, and we work on her dog for
Oh.
10 minutes and then we work on her. And so it can help with chronic pain. It helped me release my migraines. I get them probably like once or twice a year, if that. It helped me like settle into my system to where I could get my gifts. Like, I owe a lot of my nervous system settling into orthobionomy because it is gentle, it's non-invasive, and I have a really vivid memory in training. So when you do training, you receive a lot of body work as well. And someone was working on like the back of my neck and kind of like doing this like technique that we had learned, and I felt my whole nervous system go from basically outside myself and finally drop in. And then I was tired for like 3 years. No, I'm just kidding. But I like realized, I was like, oh, I've been in pretty perpetual fight or flight I mean, I was like 30 years old when this happened.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, most of us are frozen in that part.
Right? Yeah,
Yeah,
or we have the layers, right? Or you get through the freeze and underneath it is like a fight or flight little
right.
being coming out. And so, and I managed an acupuncture clinic while I did orthobionomy training. So I learned a lot about, I always say like a 1% of Chinese medicine because it's so vast and so beautiful and amazing. I love Chinese medicine. So I'm able to kind of blend in these different pieces, but I definitely stick to my scope of practice, which is nervous system, fascia, again, I'll work with a client who has bad knees and is preparing for double knee surgery. And then I work with a client who has CPTSD, who can't sleep at night, who
Oh.
is getting visited, or night terrors or sleep paralysis. Like we can go into really deep parts of the psyche. But it's not like somatic experiencing where it's like there's a verbal sharing part. People can share what they want to share. All information is good information. And as you know from readings, it's the same thing. People share
Mhm.
what they want to share and spirit builds from that. So they work like really, really well together. I feel really lucky to like be here talking to you. I know that sounds so cheesy, but there's a lot of things that could have taken me in many different directions. But it's that we always have that inner listening, even if we think we don't. It's
Mhm.
there. Even if we're like, it's a whisper, I want to develop it more. Sometimes those redirects are out of our hands as well. We all know those moments in our life too. So,
Yeah. Well, so you were describing what the session is like in person,
mhm.
which if anyone's near Asheville, they can
Yes.
see you in person.
We're
Most of
good.
the listeners will be remote. Is the remote the same? How does
Yeah.
that work?
It's
Yeah.
almost faster. So with remote sessions, they're 75 minutes long. So we do an intake. We talk about what we're working on. I recently worked with two newborns and their moms to help them get better sleep and release because it's fourth trimester. There's a lot of energy there. So we'll work with that. Or I worked with athletes, how to get into the flow and the zone of things. That's actually really interesting. And then of course I have clients with trying to step into their gifts more. We actually, I call you and we do an intake. I do take notes in Ortho-Bionomy. And then we hang up and it's about 30 to 35 minutes where I work. And as you've experienced, like I'll sometimes go where I did not think I was going to go, move around. I can be and move inside the body a lot easier when it's remote. So sometimes we'll work with like a stomach issue or a trauma that has come up. And then past loved ones will come in, sometimes with sentences, projections, or stories that they possibly said to that client, or a memory comes in. I worked with a client where actually several clients where their parents are alcoholics or in recovery now. And we work with like childhood memories of the nervous system because it's not easy to attune to, right? My husband was raised by addicts, and so two addicts, and so he has a lot of those nervous system issues. I don't want to use the word issues, things to work on. In
Nervous
past
system reactions?
reactions, yeah. And so it's cool to see like how the nervous system, we will attune. Our nervous systems are brilliant. Our systems are brilliant. Our fascia works so fast. We attune to each other so quickly. And that's what's so can be tough in a world like this where there's active energy to this is getting into 2026 a little
Yeah, good.
not
Mhm.
disattune, that's not a word, but to dissociate us, right? Which is more the brain, the central nervous system, but to like release us from that energy. And what we're doing in readings in that is we're reconnecting. So parts work will come up. Now, again, I'm not a professional therapist. So typically parts work comes up or EMDR sessions will come up because they've done that already with a appropriate practitioner. And then as a psychic, I can see the work they've done and I kind of give them continuing ed.
Yeah,
Basically
great.
on those pieces. And, then I call the client back and I tell them what I saw and they can it's up to them. They can describe what they felt and let me know kind of and then I give tips for integration and I do that in person too. Where it's like, okay, hey, I'm a binaural beat freak. I love binaural beats. So I almost always give binaural beats to like every client or singing bowls or something like that, or books or recommendations, yoga exercises to integrate the energy in because orthobionomy is cumulative. The more you do it, I just went to that training and it was 5 days long for impact injuries. And all of us have received a ton of ortho, and you can just feel the energy in the room. I mean, it's like 30 people in a room with obviously different beliefs about the world, but all like minded. And I feel we don't get that in the world as much anymore as we used to,
Yeah,
where you're all on this same page despite possibly having vastly different beliefs about things. And
yeah,
I love that. I love that meeting space for humans
yeah.
because I do feel we need a little bit more of that.
We do. If everyone can be if everyone can be accepting, of
Yes,
people's different beliefs, you know?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we can hold the space and be in the same place and and have meeting points, and then also understand, like, our nervous system can be in that space. It's brilliant. I
Yeah.
really, really love Ortho-Bionomy. Like anything, it's got its, like, funny stuff. It was kind of gate kept, so are not that many instructors, so there aren't that many practitioners,
Well,
you know.
during my session with you, it was mostly about a past life that
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
what I
past lives have
was.
been.
Yeah. So it was like a past life where I was carrying water, like I was a slave girl,
Mhm.
and I was carrying these, like, water things on my shoulders. That's why I always have these tight shoulders. But there was something significant about that past life that I needed to hear with that and integrate with that
Yes.
little girl.
And most of the time, it's actually like, so such a Pisces. I feel our past lives are interacting with us at all times, right? And most of the time, I'm like, here's the lesson, Alicia. This is the lesson. I'm more like, hey, you've carried this weight. You don't have
Mhm,
to do it in this life, but it's probably easy because you did it in that life.
mhm.
Where it's like most of the time, it's like letting something go
Yeah,
that no longer like a mentality or a projection we've taken on. Sometimes we'll take on projections from our past loved ones that aren't true,
mhm,
that we have to kind of give back to them, for their
yeah,
own, because we have a different journey once we cross over. That's what people joke around. They're like, they're just at peace. I'm like, there
mm,
some are in school, some are
mm.
still in school. Like I have clients whose past loved ones joke around, like, I thought I escaped school. And now I'm like, ah, they needed to learn. They need to learn a little bit more and then they'll come back in.
I know this will probably be a question for a lot of people. Like, the people who cross over, do you see different levels? Like you said, some need to go to school, maybe some need to go to a healing room, maybe some are stuck, or what about people who commit suicide?
Yeah. So we have collective energies. So even if you have something happen in the world to you, so let's say someone has cancer, but they go through treatment and they live, they're still in a collective energy of cancer, even when they pass. So same thing with suicide or car accidents or something like this. They're going to be a part of a collective energy. The Holocaust comes through as a collective energy. When I connect with Holocaust and people who passed in the Holocaust, all of that energy comes in. 9/11, I've connected to people who passed that way. Wars,
Canes?
hurricanes, yeah. So I worked a lot with we had Helene happen in Western North Carolina last year. And so I worked a lot with the beings that crossed over in a very confusing way. There were a lot of them where we don't get hurricanes in the mountains. And we're all part of that collective now, right? The Helene collective, I feel like too. So it's interesting because we'll have that collective energy. Sometimes, like with especially with suicide, they'll have attempted it and tried it, and it's so interesting as I'm talking to you, I can see, like, all of them that I've worked with, they, like, flash into my head. It's why when people are like, "Make eye contact," I'm always like, because I can see them and if they had possibly attempted it or something like this before they passed and they were really wrestling with their depression, they'll go through a pretty intense healing chamber where sometimes it's like they did it as a last minute decision, which statistically can happen too. And then they have a lot to recover from because I'll see clients who have loved ones who they passed of an overdose and they try to get back in and they'll be like, the door locked.
Mm.
And I'd be like, did they almost pass from an overdose several times? And they're like, yes. And then they can't get back in. They'll explain it like that. They always use an analogy or a metaphor, really, because spirit is so brilliant at that, right? Because it gets us in our observation lens, allows us to connect and it honors the grief process too. So I've also worked with a lot of clients who their past loved one is passing, they're having a hard time letting go.
Mm.
And like I just had this happen last week. The spirit was like, I mean, they teach us about taxes and life. No one teaches us how to die.
There are death doulas.
Yes, yes, exactly. And so that's where I feel like there's a lot of changes happening. And again, I live in the United States, so I know that culturally the most, but it is really interesting to go into that because that permission to let go is often something that is also in there as well.
Yeah, so you are also a death doula.
Right, in a little way, not trained in it.
No, no, not trained, not officially trained, but
Yeah. And
yeah.
and again, we've talked about this or I'm pretty open about my mom's dementia, process, is how I'll put that. Whole nother topic. She still recognizes me, but she lives in Leesburg still 7.5 hours away. So I was having a hard time psychically connecting with her. And so then I found like more of an inroad, a peaceful place to connect with her. And that's where I work with her energy. I run energy in her room and work with her from a distance. And then when I see her, I run that energy. She's so present. I know dementia is an awful disease. She has prefrontal lobal dementia too, where she gets active psychosis. So she's talking to other people. But I
Oh,
mean, I'm like, well, I think my mom was very attuned and psychic and just didn't really
right.
realize because she says
Yeah.
some stuff where I'm like, she's reading someone's mind.
Wow. What do you read about dementia? What is that about for people?
Yeah, I definitely see it as like consciousness being kind of refracted. The other thing I see is it's like the brain is a muscle. So it's like the brain gets really dry, is how I see it. And so I'll see it as also the beginning of their transition. So my mom's dementia to me started showing up about 10 years ago for her. It's not an easy disease. It affects so many people and so many families. So,
Well, what I sensed about dementia is that there's been a lot of repression.
yes, exactly. I call it she's gone rogue. And I know that sounds, but there has to be humor, right? I was just talking to my office mates, share an office space here in Asheville with a married couple, and they have friends who do a lot of improv. And so it's yes and with
Mhm, mhm.
improvisation, you're not supposed to block. And so they do that with one of their, I can't remember which one, their mom has dementia. So they'll go, yes, and
Yeah,
like they just go with the thread. And so my
yeah,
mom will sit in front of me and talk to my dad who isn't present. And I'm like, he is like this, isn't he? And I'm like, he is, mom. I'm like, what are we going to tell him? And I just go along with it. And I go cry in my car. I'm a Pisces. It's
yeah,
awful. But it's also like she's finally saying these things that I think maybe she, repressed, right? That she didn't
yeah.
say. And there's some family secrets coming out. It's
Totally,
like,
that's what I thought. There's a lot of repression, and I feel like they're not accepting what's happening to them as
yeah,
well, and so then they go, they leave, but then the repressed stuff comes up, right?
yes.
And because 'cause they're not, yeah, they're not conscious of it.
Yes. It just kinda comes out, the filter
Mhm.
goes away, and of all the heartbreaking things, like, I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna take away that I can that this is, like, such a present energy with my mom."
Alex, you have amazing gifts. Whatever someone is going through and needs help with or clarity on, including pets, you have clear communication with pets, people, living, dead, higher self, guides. The clear communication with every aspect of our being and our life and our relationships you can tune into and help everyone with. So I'm so happy to share you with everyone. And I'd love for you to give us a little example of what it's like to work with you. If you want to do a reading now for the listeners, well, let's talk about 2026. Important for us to know and do to help ourselves.
Okay, perfect. So, I always like to I know a little bit about the astrology. I know it's the year of the horse in the Chinese New Year. So, because 2026 is a very interesting year. So I'll close my eyes and I'm going to run a spiral of protection. What's cool about these types of readings is it's almost like we're transported into basically a field, where I can see people who are listening to this. And I can also see like the greater community of that as well, and then I can see the energy of 2026 because what we're doing is we're interfacing with the energy, right? So we're noticing that. I mean, I'm getting a ton of throat chakra stuff already, especially talk about clarity and clear communication. There's going to be a lot of this communication. Now, I'm going to interweave with what I know, right? We can see this with like AI things coming out, what's real, what's not, right? And resting in the knowing of like our own space. The other thing that's coming up this year is it's very, very connected to heart energy. Now, I've been getting a ton of this in readings lately where it's like less about headiness, which is interesting because you could see that Uranus, Gemini, Pluto, Aquarius. You could see some of these like bigger aspects really relating more into this consciousness of what's real, what's not, what's in our awareness, right? And we're going to want to clear it out. We're going to want to kind of clear out the noise a little bit. And we want to do this every day anyway. but there'll be like a lot of noise as well.
Well, everyone's feeling that now. We
Yes,
are just
exactly, because 'cause we're
yeah.
on the precipice
Mhm,
of it
mhm.
for sure. We're leaving the hermit card, right? We're leaving this sense of, like, what is the inner work we've done? We're leaving the dream. That's gonna be Saturn and Neptune having dipped back into Pisces. They're gonna go back into Aries, and it's like, "Okay, what are we doing about the dream?" Right? There's gonna be a lot more tangible energy in 2026, and so it's like waking up from the dream to go into this next iteration of reality, but they show me like a house. So it's like, how have we set up our house, right? Is it a little hobbit house in a cove somewhere? Is it a huge mansion? Is it a modern built with a bunch of big windows? Like, what construct do we want to go into to work with, right, in this next year? And what's cool about this is it's going to be really broken up. So one tool I would give to people is do a monthly piece with 2026. Okay, what's January look like? What's February look like? Or not even monthly in the Gregorian calendar way. Okay, I'm going to do 15 days here, 15 days here, whatever speaks to you to kind of bring in how to work with these different iterations because it's almost like color coded is what my guides show me for 2026. I actually want to say too, I haven't fully dialed in like this for clients yet. So it's cool to see all these images are like brand new images that I'm getting. And so you'll get like a flavor for each month or a flavor for each iteration of things. This is really great for pulling a card for each month for the year where you do like, if you love the tarot, you do like 12 cards and then you attune to that card for yourself for each month. So having like a planner that you work with for the year will be really, really great too. Because what we're going to see is a lot of like science technology proving spirituality, things like this, which we're already seeing, but we're going to see it more and more and more. We're also going to see, I don't say this in an alarmist way, but more refracted reality similar to COVID because 2020 is very similar to 2026, but 2026 is when we like free ourselves a bit more from some of these shifts that happened with the world shutting down. And so we see this like that's another thing of like waking up from the dream a bit where we get more connected to ourselves or people will kind of just like create their own reality, go live in their own cave, do their own thing. And so what's cool about this is like when we develop awareness for all of this, we can kind of see very intuitive year, who we want in our lives, who we don't. And you could say, like, Alex, this happens every year. We like shift things, but there's a little bit more in 2026 of like the lines being drawn, division. This is why you're getting psychics who are saying stuff like there'll be a ton of division, at least in the States, or, oh, we're going to have these people at war with these people. You're hearing stuff like that. It's more like division within yourself, like how you're dividing yourself through. A lot of parts work people will say stuff too, not just with exile, protector parts, internal family system stuff. They'll more so say, like, do you have to like cut off your arm in order to do this? Right. Like, it's like, what are we sacrificing in order to sustain where we are? So then you're seeing a lot of people who will say things like, we're in a recession right now in the States, right? Recess, taking a break. It's like reintegrating what's important to you. You know how people baked a lot of bread during COVID? It's like the
Yeah.
same thing. Like, I'm going to knit now. My grandmother knitted, so I'm going to knit. I'm going to
Well,
start quilting. See way more of that again as well.
is it like keeping it simple?
Yes, exactly. That's such a better way of putting it. Yes, keeping it simple, and you're going to see people go away from phones and into
Yeah,
like,
that's what I'm feeling that we
yeah,
all need is less technology,
way
more
less technology.
more presence of
You're seeing this with dating apps too. People aren't using dating apps anymore. They wanna
mm,
meet people on analog, real life. They wanna meet people in real life. So, you're
yeah.
starting to see you always start to see, especially in December, as we
Mm.
get to December, some of these trends where, people really, you're gonna see more death of the celebrity culture and idolization, way more.
I
It's
already see that
building that, yeah.
everyone is, like, on Ozempic, and it's weird, it's getting really weird.
Yes, getting so weird, and it's
Mm,
kinda like we're waking up to the reality of these, like, well, I'll say the word dysfunction, but of this, like, "Hey, what's not working?" You know?
yeah, and actually all of the dysfunction's always been there, but it's more in our face now, just like politics.
You took the words out of my mouth. I love it. It's exactly what I was about to say, where it's like, sometimes we get reflective politicians who allow us to mobilize, right? That's what I
Mhm.
always think of with the types of administrations that Again, I want to honor people's beliefs and who they vote for, that's free will. And it's like when we get these reflective, intense energies, it's like, okay, how can we work with this energy? How can we mobilize with this? They
Mhm.
really teach us what we really care about, right?
Yeah.
We could call it contrast energy for a lot of us, to be real,
Yeah.
right? And so that teaches us a lot, a lot, a lot. And so I'm not seeing a ton of contrast energy in 2026. I'm seeing more neutrality in certain ways of
Mm.
how can we kind of separate things out to feel it in a more neutral way, right? Because
Mhm.
we really are working towards, people are probably going to laugh at this part, but peace on earth,
Yeah, and I feel that it's like because is it less fighting energy? It's like more
Yes.
detachment and, self-care.
Yes. Yeah. And I do feel like less reliant on dopamine things.
Mhm.
Sorry. I mean, if you have Netflix stock, maybe, if you have, people are just going to be disengaging from stuff like that. I see like everyone gathered around a fire, which people do, of course, but it's more of that, and that's what's interesting is I think there's so much predictability or predictions about like people are going to have AI boyfriends and girlfriends and all this stuff. And to me, I see such a small percentage of people doing that. I feel the energy of that's actually going to cause people to find more right relationship with people in their lives.
Mm.
Let's talk about the real shit. It's a lot of that energy in 2026. But if you don't want to talk about the real shit, you'll be directed to, if that makes sense, right? And we don't want the tarot card to direct us to do anything. We don't need the tension. I always joke around, we don't need the tension and drama, but sometimes we do. And so it's like we can make choices as we go throughout that. And I do see the beginning of the year a little more intense around that, lightening up a little bit in the summer and in the fall. And in the next winter, I see more of this like kind of burrowing, deeping, a little Persephone, right? Similar Scorpio season. This past Scorpio season prepared us. It cleared out a lot of shit. It was uncomfortable for me.
Me
And
too.
so that clearing out is really going to help us move forward in
Yeah.
2026.
Good, good. Okay, so that all of the difficult things that we most likely everyone was experiencing in Scorpio season this year was clearing us out
Clearing.
so we can settle more within ourselves
Yeah.
and yeah.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
I do continue to see things like Hurricane Helene, Hurricane Melissa that just hit Jamaica, like, but that's not very psychic. That we live in the world, right? We're seeing that. But it's more about like how can we manage that so that we don't have people, a few years ago I saw a lot of people moving back to where they're from, meaning like someone like me moving back to Northern Virginia, not necessarily like Scotland or something like that. It's like people re-engaging. And so this is like you're in the community you're
Mm.
in, and now we're engaging in a certain way of like, are you home with yourself? There's a lot of that for 2026.
Great, great to know. Thank you. And oh, one last question in this channeling mode. What about the Epstein files?
I almost feel like my human might step in here too, but so the Epstein files I have been following for a long time. So since the Ghislaine trials, all of that. And so to me, the Epstein files are another kind of scapegoat, unfortunately, which I don't
Mm.
love. My stomach just turned when I even gave that message.
Yeah, but it makes
We're
sense.
still not getting to the truth of the corruption in the world. It's still not feeling like we're hitting the nail on the head when it comes to that. There this is the death of the celebrity culture, and they're all involved. All of these
Mm.
characters are
Yeah.
involved. And so to me, it's like he's almost like a side character that they forced into a main character kind of role
Oh,
that
yeah.
is this gets into like really weird esoteric things of like how we operate too once we pass and when we're here. And to me, it's like the level of corruption there is very mind-boggling.
One thing that can help people around this stuff of, like, not focus so much on releasing the Epstein files, but seeing, yeah, the corruption that's
Yes. Yeah. The
in the
system.
underworld everywhere, in the
Right.
government and the
And we can't really,
Hollywood
like,
and
keep this system going. It's not sustainable. And so, to me, Epstein is like a Band-Aid on a much bigger corruptive system that
mhm.
is, some people see failing, right? That's Pluto return to the United States. That would just be for the States. But for some people, it's like, it's this sense of not even necessarily who do I trust, but it's this sense of corruption got them where they are, right?
Yeah,
Like, it's all
exactly.
corrupt. And so it's like having integrity within yourself to combat that. Yeah, it's so the Epstein files when I see it as energy. You know those paintings people do where it's like different colors and then they swirl it? If you did that, you can't take the paint back out from and separate it back out. It's such a mess. It's just all these colors swirled in together. They're all
Mm.
mixed up together in this, and none of them want to talk about how they're all mixed up together in this like
Yeah,
storm of things. Like you can't separate the rain out from the clouds anymore,
yeah.
you
I
know?
think one thing that could help people is to stop focusing so much on it. Like, don't waste
Totally.
your energy and the noise. All the noise that we're experiencing is that it's just noise around something that isn't the main thing that we can't control either.
Yeah. And this gets into like dark web and like the show Stranger Things. Like there is a Persephone effect, like there is a dark underbelly happening, but good always overcomes evil, right? So
Yeah,
we have to like vibrate that, the peaceful heavenly space in order to really like there's just this new reality within those spaces, which is why I feel like people are going away from technology. You're
yeah,
hearing the internet's dead, you're hearing stuff like that because people are like, "This isn't real to me anymore." So that's
yeah,
also a positive thing to, like, release some of that corruptive energy there as well.
yeah. To not focus on it and to
Yeah,
focus on staying in our higher vibration.
right. And not to say we don't pay attention to the news, things like that. I
Yeah,
wanna, also say that, but it is more like, what can you manage? What can you organize within yourself? I've been
yeah,
living this year, 2025, like, clarity is kind, confusion is mean, right? And the Epstein files to me are purposefully extremely confusing.
yes.
'Cause then it's the energy of that, this mean people energy where they don't have the same empathy we do,
Right.
They don't have the same consciousness we do,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
And that
Mm.
corruption goes everywhere.
Yeah. Yes, it's
Yeah.
there. See it clearly and, and
One of
then
my,
let
like, least favorite license or bumper stickers right now, which I apologize if people have this, are the resist bumper stickers because I always think what you resist persists.
exactly.
Like, that to me is an inverse that feeds it. It's
Yeah.
like, no, what are you creating that
Mhm.
is separate from this energy that wants you to resist it? Imagine if you were just holding up a boulder and I was trying to do this reading, like, you know, like I'd get tired, I'd get
Mhm.
exhausted. We have
Yeah.
to like let those pieces go in certain ways. And that's
Yeah.
tough because we all do. I feel 99% of people on earth want this to be a better place. And
Yeah.
we've got to encapsulate that energy,
Yeah.
and bring it forward.
Great. Thank you for that
Yeah.
reading for
Yeah.
everyone. Yeah,
So
and just
funny to do.
that was great. It was perfect. Thank you so much.
Oh, good.
And
Good, good, good.
you wanna, end with pulling a card?
Oh, sure. Well, I love that we pulled this at the beginning.
Oh, yes. And you wanna talk about that?
Well, yeah. So this is like, I call this the Ace of Swords. Swords are the mental realm, they're the air signs. So I call this the Think New Thoughts card. So it's cool because it's just from the top of the deck after I had shuffled it before we got on the call. And so it is a lot, that's the magician hand. This is very much about like thinking new thoughts. I call it the therapist card. What are we shifting in our paradigms? And so it's cool because we're doing something a little different today. So it's like a perfect card for that as well.
Mm.
And then this is the Neoteric Feminine Tarot. I had a client gift this deck, but it's just a modern deck. I love it. It's one of my favorite, but it was really sweet of her. This makes sense to what we were just talking about. Oh, we have the major arcana, minor arcana. So the Four of Pentacles, Pentacles are going to be our earth realm. So this is like who we are in community and who we are outside of our community. So in the Rider Waite Smith deck, he's got a cloak around him that represents the death cloak. Because it's like, who are we when we don't engage? But we want the fours are balanced. So we want a balance of this. So it's like, how are we going to engage with community? And how are we also going to take a step back and be within ourselves? Like, boundaries are a big piece of this card for sure. But you can kind of see she's like, "Ooh, I got my bangs, I got all my stuff." And she's kind of showing it off a little bit. And everyone's like, "Oh, isn't there like people you could like donate that to or
Mhm.
something like that?" It's like the balance of that. and who
No.
we are when we kind of hoard our own resources and when we share. And so,
Mm.
because the order of the arcanas or the minor arcanas and major arcanas are great because you have the Five of Pentacles after this, which is kind of like a lack, and then the Six, which is like bringing it back into balance. What we're donating. It's the lesser arcana of the Justice card, which is like, how are we connecting to the world in a way where it's like finding that balance, you know? I love this
Perfect.
as a
That's
Libra.
perfect.
Yeah,
That's
it's
great.
so good. And I don't, it's cool, I like that, like, I'm gonna do it for myself, like, pick a card for each month because it does kind of give this, like, framework for you to work with as
Mhm.
well, and you could do that with the major arcana. There's only 22 major arcana, so you'd end up pulling 12, but that might be
Mm.
a lot, but doing with
Mhm.
the whole 78 card deck could be cool to kinda see, like, okay, what's the flavor of this month? Like, how can I guide myself?
I love that. It's a
Yeah,
great tip. Many tips you shared for
right.
everyone. 2026. Thank
Yes.
you.
Yeah, you're
Yes.
welcome.
Thank you so much for being you.
Well, thanks
And
for having me. It was really fun.
if anyone wants to book a reading or a nervous system healing session, go to your website.
Yes, themoodymedium.com.
Well, thank you so much, Alex, for being here. Thank you all for listening to all of the places we went today with Alex. And remember to follow the resource vibe for more trusted support and share the vibe. And I'll see you next time.